we just got some huge updates around Starfield. Land vehicles are finally here for a Bethesda game, as I'm sure many of you did see. And yeah, as cool as having a vehicle in a Bethesda game is, modders are already taking this to the next level. But the future of Starfield is also looking very exciting. We just got a ton of new shattered space details from Gamescom 2024 previews. But I think specifically what was shared during these previews will get many of you interested in Starfield again, because it seems like shattered space is going to very much so be a direct response to one of the major criticisms of Starfield's base game. But Starfield also just got its second major paid mod quest from Bethesda. This is known as the Escape, and it'll run you around 500 credits or about $5. I know for a lot of you, paying money for one quest will just never be worth it. And hey, if that's the case, timestamps below for the other parts of this video. But honestly, this quest was pretty interesting and will appeal to some of you, as for me, this is actually one of the best quests in Starfield overall. And I think particularly for those of you that like the Saw movies or even just Squid Game, the Escape is going to be very interesting for you because it's really just Squid Game adapted into Starfield. The way this kicks off is you'll find a new NPC looking for volunteers in the Astral Lounge, and after agreeing to participate, you'll be stripped of your items and locked away in a brand new space station location. You basically have this promise of a big reward on the other side, and now you have to find a way to escape. The layout of this one is really fun and very layered. If you're somebody who enjoys quests with a ton of choices and different outcomes, this is one of those quests. There are several rooms with different puzzles in each one, and even puzzles within the puzzle, but you have to uncover all of that going on. All throughout the questline, you can find little clues hinting you towards something. A past player that completed these puzzles left clues for us, but there are also going to be 2 new NPCs that you'll find while doing this one. And of course, these 2 other characters are also trying to complete this puzzle and escape. And it's these 2 other characters that take this from an interesting quest to one of the most enjoyable ones in Starfield, because these 2 NPCs are very distinct. They of course have high quality voice acting, as well as their own opinion on which direction we should be taking to escape. So right off the bat, as you're playing this one, you're faced with several pretty big and not that easy to decide choices. There is some random character who comes up to you claiming, yeah, they can help us. Can you trust them? You have the choice to side with them, ignore them until later on during some of the harder puzzles, or even just immediately take them out for yourself and see what items they have on their body. Each of these 3 choices will lead you to wildly different outcomes, and you'll have those options available to you with both of these different NPCs. And I would say this is the rough blueprint for the quest overall. What makes this one so enjoyable is the depth. Each room and even each character has several paths or even methods to escape. So you could just go through and solve the puzzles one by one and work through in the natural progression, but these 2 other NPCs all along the way will have their own opinions on how you're going through this, and of course share those opinions with you. Sometimes you'll even find them arguing about their opinions and how they disagree with each other independent of you, because if you don't want to go with the straightforward path, there is a completely separate alternative path for escape, using some of the clues and even some crafting of your own, and this will give you a more behind the scenes look at the operation. And while you're in the midst of this quest, you won't know who to trust. Are these 2 characters actually on your side? Is the game overall actually going to give you a prize at the end? So as much as this is a puzzle dungeon with things to figure out and stages to go through, there's a whole secondary layer on the moral and trust side of things. You have to make hard choices on whether or not you should just kill these people to take their money for yourself, or are you splitting it with both of them, assuming you actually get money at the end? And I would say this quest definitely does deliver. I tried several of the different endings, and what choices you make will lead to wildly different results for this quest line. You could potentially end up winning a bunch of credits, which is of course very nice, but also there are 2 new guns added with this one, and you may get one or neither or both. The main gun is going to be this unique pistol that features a custom skin with a custom legendary effect known as the Swashbuckler. This isn't a new weapon in Starfield, just a new skin on an existing weapon, but this new legendary effect with Swashbuckler is new, and this just feels overpowered. The weapon damage is fine, but Swashbuckler makes human NPCs drop even more credits on death, and this can be a lot of credits. I was consistently finding hundreds or even a couple thousand credits from higher tier enemies. So now all of a sudden, clearing out just one dungeon or enemy base can net you several thousand credits of profit, which definitely felt a little bit OP. The second new weapon has the same skin, but instead 3 random legendary effects, so basically just a unique version of this weapon with random effects. Overall, whether or not you think this is worth it is going to very much so be a personal question. It's $5 for about an hour to an hour and a half of story content. It's incredibly engaging and very high quality story content with a ton of replay potential. Like, you'll likely just want to try some of the other endings just to see what happens, because they are very different outcomes. So while $5 for an hour of content is very steep, it also is really high quality. And for me, this is the type of stuff I am okay with seeing on the paid mod shop. Assuming paid mods are here to stay either way, high quality quest lines are the type of content I want to see being delivered via them. Because sadly, yeah, there are a lot of people abusing this system, and Bethesda just seems to be letting it happen. A couple of weeks ago, I covered all of the paid mods that were currently available for Starfield. Since then, a bunch of additional ones have come out. But some of the paid mods out there are just dumb. One of the paid mods adds in weapon attachments that literally just increases your character's HP. There's a singular vendor that sells no new items and costs several dollars. So you're spending several dollars just to have a ramen shop that does nothing new. And there's really two separate issues here. Pricing, which I think is something that can be figured out. But to me, the far more egregious thing is the type of content being listed. As recently reported on by Zero Period Productions, we saw how one user on the Skyrim side is selling a pack of weapons that was literally just purchased from CG Trader. So they bought all these weapons for $25 and are now selling them for $5 for the pack. It's literally just an asset flip. There's not much new added, and it gets even worse because this was already released as a free mod a couple of months ago, and it's now just a free and paid mod. This just shouldn't be allowed to be sold. I think Bethesda needs to seriously increase the moderation if they want these paid mods to not just be a complete joke. Because there are some genuinely cool pieces of content coming out via this. We just saw King Gath Creations release a full-fledged DLC for Skyrim. Over a dozen hours of new content, new quest content, new mechanics, and just overall a very high quality piece of content for just $10. And like, yeah, I'm more than happy to spend $10 on this amount of content. You're getting a boatload here. This team was even contracted by Bethesda to create a Doom-themed mini-quest for Starfield that is coming soon, and this will be totally free. But looking past just some of the paid mods and controversy surrounding those, Starfield also did just get an update this past week. It was a relatively small one, but it did add in two major features. 60 FPS support was finally added for the Xbox Series S via some of these new visual options. That's huge. I think playing games at 30 FPS is absolutely brutal, particularly in 2024. I barely even play games under 100 FPS these days, and I think 60 FPS should be the minimum. So that's a great option for those of you on the Series S. But of course, the far more notable addition is the newly added Rev 8 vehicle. This has actually been getting rave reviews online, but I kind of disagree. I just find this one to be okay. The vehicle itself can be fun from time to time. You simply buy it from the ship services technician for 25,000 credits, and then wherever your ship lands, the vehicle will appear. You can of course drive around in both cities or on empty planets. The driving here feels okay. It's definitely not Forza Horizon quality driving, and definitely not Forza Motorsport, but for an open world RPG, I would say it's pretty good. It's not going to blow you away, but you probably won't be disappointed either. And the vehicle does feature both a horizontal and vertical boost. So basically a speed boost, but also the ability to fly for a short period of time, which can be incredibly fun. The vehicle has a spot for your companions and even Vasco. Both you and Vasco have some nice get in and get out animations, and Vasco will throw his arms up as you gain some speed and even make comments on your driving or just what's going on. The vehicle has a weapon built in, although it's fairly weak, and it even is amphibious, so you could take it into the sea as well. And overall, while I found this vehicle to be pretty fun, it's definitely not perfect. The implementation clearly feels like an afterthought. This menu pop-up to buy it just feels a bit lazy. There's no mechanic for adding this onto your ship. It'll just always spawn next to your spaceship now. And this menu doesn't even work all the time. I had two separate issues here. One time, I just didn't have enough credits to buy the buggy. I didn't realize that, but also never told me. It just went through as if I had bought it, except I didn't actually own it, and I ended up customizing a vehicle that I didn't have, so I lost all of that progress. Not a huge deal, but definitely a bit curious and annoying, but also a ton of mods out there, including some paid mods, will block your ability to buy this vehicle. So if you own the paid Quantum Stealth Operations Safe House mod, you'll need to turn that off or buying the buggy will not be possible. It'll just act like you're able to buy it even though you never actually own it. The vehicle had some weird stutter issues with it, like almost every time I'd get in or get out, I'd get a slight stutter, as well as I just found this buggy to be really slow. Boosting feels quite nice, but right here, this is me driving at full speed and it feels a bit bad. It feels like I should definitely be able to go a bit faster than this. As you're exploring with the Rev 8, it feels like you constantly need to be spamming the boost key to go an appropriate speed. But thankfully, you can mod in faster vehicles, and yeah, that has already happened. Right now, you can download a mod to buy a new version of the Rev 8 with improved speed and longer boost duration, or even something a bit more custom. The Halo Warthog is already here and fully implemented in Starfield, and this too looks amazing. But even more appealing for many of you, you can also get your hands on the X-34 Landspeeder from Star Wars. And of course, this will make a phenomenal addition to some of those Star Wars overhauls. And even more exciting content is on the way. Mod author Bub200 already posted a work in progress Baja bug, which looks really fun. But the far more interesting aspect is the suborbital shuttle. It looks like this will be a proper flying vehicle using this new vehicle system. So as cool as the Rev 8 buggy is in Starfield, it almost feels like the real awesomeness of vehicles will be coming via some of the vehicle mod possibilities that are on the horizon. I mean, this looks insane, and it was posted just 4 days after this feature was released. The future is very promising with Starfield modding, and while I do feel like the Rev 8 is a good addition, it solves that problem of walking to locations for way too long, but also isn't addressing the core issue here. The points of interest and many of the things you're walking to are just not that interesting, being carbon copies of other random points of interest. So yeah, you can get there a bit faster now, but what you'll get to is still relatively boring, and that is the major issue. So the buggy's pretty fun to drive around with from time to time, but I don't think this is worth reinstalling the game over, at least personally. Although you probably will be reinstalling Starfield in just a couple of weeks, because we just got some new details around Shattered Space at Gamescom 2024. Some attendees were able to see a 15 to 30 minute demo of Shattered Space, and this revealed a ton of new details about the expansion, several of which will get you very interested in it. If you haven't seen, the Shattered Space questline is going to be focused around House Va'ruun, that mysterious faction from Starfield. And the questline will begin with a member of House Va'ruun sending us to a research lab ship to look for their brother, who seemingly was on the ship but is now gone. It's likely the ship we're seeing here in the teaser that was largely taken over. But then, while on this ship, we are sucked into or just gain access to a new wormhole that'll bring us to the newly added Kavnik system. And this will be the new system that contains the House Va'ruun homeworld of Va'ruun Kai. So right off the bat, this is following that typical Bethesda Game Studios DLC formula of taking us to a faraway place. But of course, with Starfield, that's a much bigger deal. Starfield takes place in the settled systems. This is the only section of space that humanity has colonized thus far. Va'ruun Kai is outside that, and a component of this DLC will be House Va'ruun's very unique way of living. We'll be seeing how they even managed to survive here so far away from everyone else. But the best news about all of this is it means the expansion will be taking place largely in just one system, and even more specifically on just one planet, and really just around one major city. From some of the previews, we heard how the expansion captures that classic Bethesda vibe where everything you need is right there in this carefully crafted world. As it seems like the core of the questline is really only going to be taking place in Dazra, the capital city of House Va'ruun on Va'ruun Kai. So while this is a full-fledged planet you could explore, there's going to be procedurally generated parts of it. The actual quest content is largely concentrated into this capital city, and overall, Shattered Space is described as a far more guided and handcrafted experience compared to the rest of Starfield. And this has even been described as quite notable, as some previewers describe that even after just a bit into the demo, it's pretty clear that Shattered Space has a much larger amount of handcrafted content compared to the base game. So it does seem like Bethesda is taking some of the initial Starfield feedback to heart, and Shattered Space will be a far more condensed experience, not necessarily short, just not as much flying around to different planets. But thankfully, it has been confirmed that you're not going to be locked here. You can still freely travel from this new Kavnik system back to the settled systems at will. But as you can imagine, the Kavnik system will have its own set of unique characteristics. As we enter Va'ruun Kai, things are going to be in disarray. The wormhole opening allows us in, but it's also wreaked havoc on the planet itself. And our initial quest will be helping resolve this via combat or diplomacy. Because yes, diplomacy is a very real aspect of this DLC. Reportedly, you'll be siding with different factions within House Va'ruun, and the politics of this city will come into play, and you'll be getting involved in that. Since this is a faraway land, lots of the previews describe tons of custom content via armors or even new weapons being seen, but also quite a few new enemies. In addition to the wormhole we use to get to Kavnik, there's also a vortex nearby that is spilling out horrifying creatures, including this metal snake-like enemy that we could see from the trailer, but also a bunch more new enemies will be present. And one of the pretty interesting through points described for Shattered Space is horror. Reportedly, this expansion will have a far larger horror theme and even gameplay compared to the rest of Starfield. Some of the previewers describe this one as Dead Space, as well as some of the enemy AIs described as being far more aggressive here, and some of the dungeons being much tighter. So you'll be relying on melee weapons and shotguns a lot more, have enemies chasing you down various corridors, and just generally it seems like there's going to be a bigger focus on close quarters combat and jump scares, but thankfully also some new options as far as weapons go, as far as melee shotguns and other close quarters options. And to me, this just sounds fantastic. The horror elements are pretty neutral to me. It could either be great or not that great. I don't have a strong opinion on them right now either way, but being thrust into this world and really just getting to dive into their spacer culture and politics of this strange and mysterious faction, and it all being focused in one poor location, is exactly what I want from Starfield. A return to that past Bethesda Game Studios exploration is a really strong selling point for me. Thankfully, Shroud's Base is only dropping in a little over a month now on September 30th, and many of you already own this one because it was included in the Starfield Premium Edition, which you probably bought to play the game a bit early. Although if you are looking for more Starfield, check out this video to see the current state of Starfield paid mods.